Greetings YouTube. Today I'm going to work on a new pole arm, and I'd like to make this into a harpoon. And my goal here is to put two holes here, make a straight cut to the holes, make a straight cut from the corner to the hole on both sides. And the holes there are both for aesthetics and for the fact that it means I'm not going to have to make a very tight cut here. I'll have a hole, a relief hole. I'm thinking of using 1/2-inch holes, maybe 3/4. We'll find out. See what the biggest bit I've got is, and I may go up to that size. Probably going to start out with a smaller one though. I don't think I want to try hogging through this because it's not uber thick, but it's also not real thin either, and I don't want to get the drill bit bound up or something. But before I do anything, I think I'm going to clean it up. So I'm going to put this, I'm not going to really worry about the shaft so much, but I want to get this surface flat so that I can lay down some lines and things so I can see what I'm doing and not be drawing on rust. So I'm just going to take my flap wheel and just give this real quick and clean up both sides on this so that it's nice clean surface to work with. Alright, I've cleaned up the two sides so that they're now rust free. I didn't go too deep because I didn't see any point in it because I'm going to be taking a whole bunch of this metal off. I'm going to be cutting a whole lot of it off, so why polish metal that's going to end up being either recycled as a weapon or just recycled. I have laid down the basic lines that I want to eventually cut, and now I have the two dimples I've made in the steel so that I can drill the holes. And I'm going to start out with a 1/4-inch drill bit, and the biggest drill bit I have is a 1/2-inch, so I'm going to be making these holes 1/2-inch. And I've set this hole, this mark, 1/4-inch from my layout line, so if things work out the way I want them to, the hole will just kiss the edge of that. That's kind of my goal. And I got my 3-in-1 oil here to help to lubricate this whole process. And I'm going to take my time. There is no hurry, and I don't want to stress my drill or my drill bit. Though it's a lot harder to harm a 1/4-inch drill bit than it is the tiny one that I broke recently while working on the stand that this drill is sitting on. Also, I don't know if I told you folks that I rounded the corners on this thing and put on a coating of polyurethane. I meant to tell you that when I did the video on the stand, but I believe I left that clip out by mistake, and then by the time I got it done, I was like, screw it, I'm not putting that in because I'm going to have to re-render it. So yeah, so there is a little bit of protection on my stand. So now I'm going to turn the drill on, lube it up, and start drilling. Before I vacuum it up, we got some really nice curls out of this one. That one was really well, that one came out nice. So I get the speed right. So I went all the way through, and I realized this is a little on the hinky side, but getting a large object like this into position is not easy. So I've got it clamped in place, and this is locked down. And there's a washer under there to help even it out. So it's as stable as I can make it, and it worked. So there you go. So now I'm going to have to vacuum it up and lower this whole unit, reset the position because the 1/2-inch drill bit is considered longer than this one, so I can't just replace it and drill a hole again. I got to reposition the whole thing. So that's the next stage. Okay, I have discovered some limitations in my equipment. First off, I was using some general purpose Ryobi bits, and the 1/2-inch drill bit just would not cut this hole, and that's a literal, it would not cut the process. So I had to go out and buy a Milwaukee drill bit designed specifically for steel. My general purpose ones just didn't have what it took to go through it. And the other problem I had, which is why it's in this vise as opposed to in my over here in my drill press, is that my drill press is not slow enough. That's going to sound weird, but if I want to drill a 1/2-inch hole, I need to be running an RPM of about 90 to 110. So like around 100 RPMs. The lowest that drill bit can go is 335. So it's just not going slow enough. Ideally, I'd be doing this in a mill. I don't have a mill. If I had a mill, I could have set the drill press to the exact speed I wanted, and I would have through this thing in minutes, as opposed to the work it's taken me to get through this. So I had to use my my drill, and it doesn't have a speed setting, so I'm just playing with the drill speed, trying to get it as slow as possible so it'll cut and not bind. So I now have 2 half-inch holes through this friggin' thing. It will cut up to this size, which is 5/16. So 5/16 will go through a 1/4 inch of steel pretty well. So I opened up a hole, and then I just used the half-inch to, go the rest of the way. So that's a limitation. It's frustrating, but sometimes you only learn this kind of thing the hard way. I will try using the half-inch, that bit, and probably in the drill press later. But today I just wanted to get through this and get done with this particular hole because it was the stumbling block. So now that I've gotten through this, I can now cut here and then here or here. I may go to there just for artistic sense. So I might go like from the center of that hole to that corner, like there, and then right along this from that edge that way. And I'll have the notches out, and once the notches are out, then I can then cut the bevel itself. So this is going to go, yeah, probably just below that, because I want to go from here to the center for the actual harpoon section. So yeah, we're going to see how that works. So I haven't quite figured out how that's going to lay out yet, but at least I have the holes drilled, and that was very frustrating. You have no idea. So on to the cleanup and layout. Well, here we have the rough cut done, and this thing was very difficult to clamp. I just could not put it in the position I wanted to do. I don't have an outfeed table, an outfeed support, so I had to either use this as a tailstock support on the rod, or I had to use this. One of the two. And I was twisting it and wiggling it around, and this is what happens when I had too much vibration. Just chewed the edge right off this wheel. The other one is much better because I did a better job at clamping. It's not even at the moment, but I can clean this up, straighten it out, make it look more symmetrical. I need to clean this stuff up. So that's the next task, is to get the flap wheel out and start shaping it. And I can do that when it's in the vise, I think, without too much difficulty, which will means it'll be more stable. And that's really what I needed. I need stability. And this thing has been very difficult to clamp. It's been very frustrating because I just don't have the position. It's got this shaft in there. I didn't want to separate the shaft from the head because I didn't have a difficult time getting them back together. If I just had the head, it would be much easier because that's a very small object. But having this big steel tube on here has been very awkward. So, throwing that one away. Thankfully, they're not that expensive. And now it's time to clean it up. And once I get it cleaned up, as far as the overall shape, and it's going to be start grinding a bevel on it. I may just do one bevel. We're going to see how it goes. And here we go. Now, I actually put a bevel on both sides, and it comes just to a meet, really. It's not even sharp here. And there's a reason for that. I actually had the opportunity to examine a real whaling lance, in fact, last weekend. And the edge was not that sharp. It wasn't about being incredibly razor sharp. It was about the fact that the target you were going into didn't have that thick a hide, and you were going into something and you were trying to get a deep wound. And this right here is actually short. This shaft right here is way too short for an actual harpoon. This thing would have to be 3 times the long as this, maybe 4 times as long. But this is really just a fantasy weapon. This is a post-apocalyptic harpoon. It's not meant to be actually used. And I just put some simple bevels here, just mostly for aesthetics. I like the way that looks. But yeah, this is all about the appearance of what people think a harpoon looks like as opposed to what a harpoon actually looks like. Go look up what a harpoon looks like. It doesn't look like this. But if you look in fantasy references for role-playing games, a lot of the time you see harpoons and they look like this. Sometimes they're well done and they only have one point, and the point has a gimbal on it, has a hinge, so it goes in, and when you go to pull out, it kind of turns so it's at a 90-degree angle, or close to a 90-degree angle, so that the harpoon can't come out. This is, again, purely a fantasy design, but it does penetrate very well as I tried against here one of my 2x4 studs in my basement, and it really does sink in there quite deep. So now I'm going to take this outside. I think I have a little daylight left, I'm not sure. And you can, as you can tell from my hand, I've been covering myself in sparks. And I actually succeeded in welding sparks to the guard on my grinder, on my angle grinder. There were so many sparks coming so fast, the metal actually fused into a little ball on the guard. So yeah, a lot of grinding today. But this is what I want. I'm looking for that kind of primitive look, which is the post-apocalyptic aesthetic I'm going for. So now it's outside to take some pictures, and then post those up on my my DeviantArt page, ironstaff.deviantart.com, and go into my collection. I'm really quite happy the way this one came out with. It's not perfect. One side came out much better on the long cut. I've learned some things from, I can't remember her name. It's just like a Swedish woman that does crafting, and she's watching her techniques of using a thin cutoff wheel on steel helped me a lot to figure out what I'm doing wrong and improve my cuts, and it's showing. The more I do them, and now that I'm using her technique, it's coming out better. So I'm happy with that. More to come in the future, folks. I have lots of designs still to work with. I've got stuff in here to make another dozen weapons, probably. But now it's time to clean up a little. Actually, get the picture first, then clean up a little, because I don't have to worry about sunlight to clean up. So I hope you folks have enjoyed my post-apocalyptic harpoon build.